Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the Proven Alliance studio. Dean's with me today. How are you, Dean?
I'm good. How are you,
Good.
Scott?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you. We were going to have a little chat today about UX. That is your bread and butter. That is the raison d'être at TrueMatter. Why is it so important? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. What do you mean by UX and what that means to sort of the digital work that you do?
That's actually a really good question. That word means so much now and so little at the same time. Everyone
Yeah.
uses a term for a while, and it's hard to know what it really means. When we think of UX, user experience, or experience design, we're just talking about making sure that the people who use the things we make have an easier time of it.
Yeah.
It's not annoying. It's efficient. They can be productive with it. They can get things done. They don't have to think too hard about it. All the things that you probably associate with using a product that is pleasant.
Hmm.
I'm sure you can think of products that you use that are not pleasant and some that are. And a lot of that comes down to what we call UX, or user experience. I think um, it's come to mean, for a lot of people, just air quotes, right, web design,
Right.
use UX, and that's really, you can call it that if you want, but it's not really what it's about. User experience is really predicated on all the thinking you have to do to plan out something to be easy to use.
Hmm.
So when something is super easy that you love, I'm trying to think one off the top of my head. Let's say you're just booking a flight or you're booking a
Yeah.
room, and it was super duper easy. Maybe you use Airbnb or something, and
Right.
it's wonderful. Well, a ton of thinking went into making that experience frictionless, easy, and wonderful.
Right.
That's what we mean by user experience.
I just booked a flight and I had a few like points and coupons and things, and I was browsing and they were right there and I could just
Yeah.
apply it to my itinerary, and I was like, wow, like they just added this feature, and I was like, it's so
Yeah, they
refreshing.
thought of it knowing that you would need it before
Right.
you asked for it.
Right.
That's experience. You had a good experience. So we want
So
to differentiate that from just standard designing stuff for a screen.
I guess I have two questions. One, and I'll tell you what they both are first, and then we'll come back and address them. So, what gets in the way of building things with a good user experience, and then what does it mean to sort of think of everything that you're building from that perspective first? So maybe let's talk about the obstacles that get in the way. Why isn't everything built nicely?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Scott. So many things get in the way of a good experience. Let's just start with something simple, like people who want to make something have an idea in mind, and they just want it to go the way they want it to go, but they're not really
Hmm.
thinking about an experience. They're not
Right.
really truly thinking about users. Some people don't even really know who their users are or what
Oh
they
yeah.
those people want to do, and they don't take the time to question some of their thought process about it.
Fair to
Sometimes,
say they don't put themselves in those shoes as well. Like they
yeah,
don't try and sort of
exactly
build
right.
the empathy and
Right.
the association with that. Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's like you just say, "I want to build something I want to build," and I'm not really thinking about the people who are using it. So that's a big part of it. Another part of it is simply uh, people are doing what they see being done everywhere else, and so they feel
Hmm.
there's no reason to do anything different. And they might copy someone else's work, not
Sure.
knowing that those people really weren't thinking about users, or their business is completely different, or their users are different.
Right.
In other cases, it's about raw um, timelines. Sometimes, if you want something done very quickly and
Yeah.
um, with complete dispatch, there are certain things you usually have to sacrifice for that.
Yeah.
If you want to go fast, well, you're going to have to think a little less.
Right.
Really,
Right. Yep.
literally.
I know what you
All
mean.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so some of the things that fall by the wayside earliest are the things that we just feel are luxuries, even though they're not. And sometimes
Do
that's
you
Go
Do,
ahead.
do you also think there's a discount to applied to the importance that it's
Yeah,
not?
yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah,
that's you were sensing that's where I was going.
yeah.
The We don't think things like considering users or dealing with just the last little ins and outs of
Mm,
how they interact with a product are as important as raw development getting it done. We think that in order to move quickly, we'll create templates and then that'll be
right.
enough. We'll throw content into it later. So things like good content strategy fly out the
Mm,
window too. And at TrueMatter, we equate um, content, meaning everything you consume, including and especially words, as key drivers of user experience. Those things kind of go out the window when you got to move quick, or you're copying someone else, and it's an important loss. So we exist to say, hey, let's think about those things that lots of people let fall by the wayside, and as a result, make things better. And often you don't have to work a whole lot harder to make things a whole lot better. You just have to have this premise
So,
set.
so talk about that premise. Like, I think that gets into my second question a bit more, which is what does it mean to come at this from a UX perspective first?
I think the biggest way that people can change their thinking here is to simply wonder what it would be to
Yeah.
A, not know an answer. In other words, what if I didn't know what this thing should be? How would I then act? And then the second question would be, well, what if I'm not the user? What are they like, and who are they, and what are they thinking? And if you ask those two questions, you're on your way to a solid experience. You may or may not totally get there, but you are definitely got a great shot at it. So it's just simply saying, I'm not the center of the universe. I don't have all the answers, and I need to find who is going to use this thing I'm making, and really cater my thought process, my strategy, my sort of attack mode for a project toward them. So it doesn't really matter, like um, in this sense, like whether you use a CMS or not, for
Hmm.
instance, is a little bit secondary to the question of you should be thinking about users regardless.
Right. So I think it would be very difficult to stay outside yourself in that exercise.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's tough.
Like I hear what you're saying, and I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then I'm picturing myself going through that kind of an exercise and
It's
going,
hard to do.
I would be so naturally drawn back into my own experience there. How do you get a client to that place they need to be, or what are your ways of approaching this? Is it just the fact that you are simply an external observer?
Yeah, it helps for us to be external and objective. We
Yeah,
have no problems talking with our clients about whether something is going to work or not. Like we don't
sure.
have a political horse in this hunt, so to speak. Um, but I think the way to get people to acknowledge that they need to think this way is a little bit um, dependent on where someone is.
Hmm.
So we used to work, and we still do work very hard to explain user experience and explain why it's important to pay attention to users. But the reality of it for us has been when people are ready, they're coming to us. And by ready, I
Right.
mean
Yeah.
they have gotten the last of a series of unending complaints about this, that, or the other, and they're tired of it, and they
Yeah.
realize I don't know what the answer is, but I know my customers are complaining about using this thing, and we have to do something different from what we've been doing. And that usually is where they'll think, well, I have heard about this thing, like creating great experiences for people. Let me think about that. And that's usually where we come up. So many times our clients are coming to us kind of ready because they've been burned and had difficulty in the past. But
I love that.
yeah, when we sometimes we work with internal teams, and there's a mixture of acceptance of
Hmm.
the centrality of the user, or trying to stay there, as you mentioned. And we really run through several exercises with them. And when we bring them into exercises where users are encountering their product or trying out new ideas, and they start seeing how people respond and react, that helps them the most to see, hey, this is a good approach. I hadn't really
Yeah.
done this before, and let's go.
And yeah, I would imagine that having the specialty that you do definitely is its own filter for the kind of
Yeah, that's right.
client who
That's right.
recognizes that's what they need. It's really important when we're doing our UI UX work that everything that we put in front of a client is also a practical solution. And there's sort of a step that we take that goes through the dev team as well, which we find to be very, very useful in making sure that the overall project budget is appropriate and
Yeah,
there's a viable solution that we're putting in front of the client. So for sure.
totally understood. Right. Got to
Yeah.
balance all of it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dean. I appreciate that. I think this is a good sort of moment of reflection for anybody that's interested in boosting the impact and the effectiveness of their tools, their interfaces, their digital experiences. So we look forward to advancing as many of those as we can in the coming year.
Yep. Thanks, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Dean.